Okay, so this video is going to show you a little bit about moving around in Maya and how to manipulate the basic shapes that are part of Maya. In this image here, you can see that I've made a spider using nothing more than spheres that I just reshaped and resized, and cylinders. And then here along the surface is just a flat plane, and it was all rendered out using Arnold, which is built into Maya 2017 and 18. So you can see here the basic spider. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save this scene, and then I'm going to go ahead and create a new scene, and we're going to talk about the basic area here in Maya. So if I want to rotate my views around, I can hold my Alt button and my left mouse button. If I hold the Alt button and my right mouse button, I can zoom in and out, and then I can use my middle mouse button to rotate in and out if you have a rotate mouse button, or you can hold your Alt button and the middle mouse button and move up and down. So the Alt button and the middle mouse button moves you up and down, left and right. Alt button left again rotates. Here you can see that I have this heads-up display, but if we don't want that in your views, or we want to be able to add it, we can go up to Displays, under the Viewport Heads-Up Displays, and I can turn this off since it may be a little distracting. We can bring it back later. Okay, so basic shapes. Here under Poly Models, Poly Modeling, you can see I have a sphere. And if I use the W button or click on the left side of the window here, that's for the Move button. I can move it left, right, up and down, forward and backwards. I can add a cube, cylinder, and there are many more shapes. And if you want more than just the ones that are here in the shelf, we can go up to Create and hover over Polygon Primitives, and you can see that they're all listed here: toruses, planes, pyramids, prisms, etc. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just select a couple of these. I'll just leave them on for right now. We can move around and play with them a little bit. Okay, so here I have my sphere. I use the W key on my keyboard to be able to select to move it, and now that the Move button's on, anything I click on will have the little arrows indicating move. And these little colored squares actually will move it around in a plane. I can grab it and move it around like this and this. It's hard to tell the difference here, but if I hit my space bar, you can see that I will go to a 4 image here, and now it would be easier to grab it in one plane. So this is my top view. If I grab it just by that, it keeps me in that same plane, but allows me to move all over the place. If you see the other images on my front, side, or perspective view. And I could do the same if I were to grab it in my front view. I could raise it up and down, but it would still stay in that same plane. I can't move it out of the plane because of where I'm grabbing it. Alright. This is useful because in the perspective view, sometimes your perspective, again, is a little bit off. If you're trying to move something around or pull something in a certain direction, you are looking at it from a kind of a three-dimensional view, and you may accidentally pull something in a direction that you didn't intend to pull it or push it. So if you use your side views and your top views, front views, these other solid views, you can make sure that you would only grab it and move it in the direction that you intend to move it. And we can see that for an example if I use my R key. If I hit R, you see this little box down here for Resize. Resize allows me to shape things. And in this case, if I want to make it bigger and smaller, I can deform it in different directions. If I hover it in the center, I can make it bigger in all different directions in all the planes, X, Y, and Z. Alright, so if I wanted to show you the advantages of using the foregrid sometimes, when it's convenient to be able to shape things, I would hold my right mouse button down, and you see that I have these other options appear when I have an object selected. In this case right now, the object that we're seeing is the sphere is in object mode. But if I wanted to, I could go to Vertex Mode, and you can see that all of the dots on the cylinder are now highlighted purple, and I have grab the vertices. These are the points of the object that are tracked in three-dimensional space by the computer to create this object. If I were to select one of them, you can see that now the little resize scale is on there. If I hit W on my keyboard, I can grab one of these and I can pull it. And if I look in my other screens here, you can see that I'm pulling it off center. It looked like I was pulling it straight to the left, but actually I'm pulling it way off the center. I can hit Control Z and put it back where it was. And now if I wanted to keep it and pull it straight, I could grab it in the top view and I can pull it this way using my plane tool, and it keeps it straight. And now I don't have that off to the left veering that was happening. So that's the advantage of using these four screens, to be able to help keep your model straight and the direction straight as you're working. Okay, so those are vertices. There are also edges, which are the blue lines here, and I can select them just the same. And if I want to select more than one at a time, I can click on one, hold the Shift button, and click on another one. If I wanted to select an entire series or a straight line, I can select one along this edge here, along the top, and then I can select the next one and double click. And now you can see that all of the edges along the top have been selected. And if I wanted to resize them, I hit my R key again, and I could pull them in all directions and kind of give it this expansion, or I could even shrink it down. I could deform it in a direction. And another thing I could do is I can use my rotation tool, which is the E key, and it's also over here. You see the rotate, a little half arrow around the square, and I could grab these all at once. If I grabbed it here, you can see that I might get lucky and pull it the right direction. I can rotate that whole face of this cylinder. Again, to make sure that I maintain the direction that I want to move it, it's a little bit easier to grab it in the top view or one of the side views, so I can make sure I keep it straight. Okay. Alright, so that's basic movements there. So now let's go ahead and take a look at another method of manipulating our models, and that would be the face. So if I grab the face, now you can see that the areas between the vertices and the edges highlighted into that one section. And again, I can grab multiple at a time by double clicking, and I grab more than I intended. I can grab the entire side. And again, I can manipulate these in different directions, do different things with them. If I wanted to grab just one face, I could do the same. Twist it around a little bit. W gives me the ability to pull it straight out. Well, one other thing I can do with it is I can also extrude. I can extrude edges as well as faces. The same way, if I hit Control E, or up here under my Mesh tool, Edit Mesh tool rather, sorry, you see Extrude right here. And what that does is that allows me to grab it by one of the edges, and I can then, well, I hit it twice, so that's what happens here. Let's just go ahead and undo what I've done, and just do it again. Control E, so I can show you a little bit more smoothly. There we go. You can pull it out like a piece of pie. Okay. So at the beginning, I showed you the bug. So let's go ahead and go back now. I showed you the edge, vertices, and faces. Let's go ahead and go back to object mode. You can see it highlights green, and I can delete it. One thing I should probably also maybe show you is, real quick before I go on, is if I go back to face mode, for example, and I select a face, I can hit the delete key, and I can actually delete individual faces. I can also do the same for edges and vertices. Now it kind of opens it up. One of the things we've got to be careful though is Maya likes to have neat, even objects that have closure. So we do something like this. We may need to later on put it back to make this so that the edges are all meeting. It doesn't like n-gons, which are sides that are more than 4 for Maya. So if I go back to edge mode, I can select edge, and then select the opposite side. And we have this tool up here under edit mesh, bridge, and I can bridge it and close it back up. And we can talk about those later. Anyway, so now go back to object mode. I'm going to go ahead and delete that cube, and let's take a look at how I made that spider's body. Here I have a sphere, and what I did was I rotated it 90 degrees so that it was on its axes. Let me go ahead and get myself, I'm just going to delete that. We'll get started from the very front here. Alright, hit the sphere button, go, put it right back in the middle, and I'm going to select it, and I can rotate it 90 degrees. Pretty simple. Hit the E key. I can grab it, I can pull it forward, I can do it on the top. And if we take a look over here in the channel box, you can see that I'm rotating it on the X axis. So the channel box shows me positions of my object, and the attribute editor shows me the specific attributes of this object, where I can go in, I can change some of the subdivisions. For example, I can give it more subdivisions, change its radius, make it bigger, smaller. And also this is where we get into the shading, which is the colors of the surfaces, and I'll get to that in a second. Here's the Lambert. So we go back to the channel box. I want to rotate it 90 degrees in the X-axis, and then I just kind of want to flatten it out a little bit. So I just use my R key, and I can flatten it. Okay. You can see there that I have it flattened a little bit, and that's how I made the spider's body. And for the cylinders, I want to go ahead and show you how I did that to make the legs. What I did was I used the R key for resize or scale, and then I can grab it by the plane here, and I can change it in one plane and just make it skinnier. So that's how I made the legs. And then I just rotated them into the angles that I wanted them to be in. Created another sphere. That's not a sphere. Created a sphere. There we go. Moved it. And I was able to shrink it down using the scale tool again. In this case, I'll just do it here. Make it small enough. Close, so that it's close to the area I want it to be in, and then I can manipulate it with the different directions, and I can make it smaller or bigger if I need to. And then once I got all that done, one of the things I did to be able to move them in one piece is I combined them. So I held the shift button, and selected them both, and up here you can see this two little pieces of paper with a circle around it. That's the combine tool that's on the toolboard. But in Maya, there's multiple ways to get to the different tools. Another place to find it is here under Mesh and Combine. And right under the Combine is the Separate. So if I wanted to, again, separate them into individuals, I could use that. And if I combine them, now what you'll see happens is if I move one, they're now a combined group, and I can move them together. And I can also rotate them together, so they'll stay together. And that allows me to change the angle of my legs. So those are the two basic things I did for the spider, and just rescaled the size of the spheres. And that should get you started with making the body. Next video, I'll just quickly go over how to change materials and how to do a render in Arnold.